Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the April 27th, 2016 ZBA meeting. The next ZBA meeting will be on Wednesday, May 25th. If you have the preamble, Rich, if you could read that. Oh, sorry, we forgot the Pledge of Allegiance. Tony Kilius on the pledge. Sure. If you could all rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rich?
Do you want to have Lenny go in?
I'll take her.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will proceed with the petitions in the order that they are listed in the agenda, unless the board deems it appropriate to take a petition out of order. State law and local ordinances set out criteria that must be met in order for this board to grant a request. The minimum requirements are outlined in the form provided by the Community Development Office, and the petitioner should proceed with this format to provide adequate justification for the board to grant the request. The chair will then open the meeting to hear testimony either for or against the request. All discussion will be between the speaker and the board. Please be respectful of all, and in the interest of time, refrain from repeating previous testimony. No new documentation will be accepted by the board for consideration this evening, but the board reserves the right to ask for additional testimony at any time. After hearing the facts from all parties regarding the petition, the chairman will close the public hearing, and the board will deliberate and vote on the request before moving to the next petition. Please turn off all cell phones and pagers if you have them.
Lynn, can you swear everybody in, please? And welcome.
Anyone who's interested in testifying tonight, if you would raise your right hand. Swear that everything you've said tonight is true to the best of your ability.
Thank you. Tonight, Fran is absent, so Lenny, I'm going to have you sit in tonight. I'll take the thumbs up. All right. So let's get things rolling. The first case is Bernstein, Schur, Sawyer, and Nelson, PA, petitioner and 427 Daniel Webster Highway, LLC owner, variance under Section 3.02 to permit the creation of a third dwelling unit in an existing detached...
Hang on a minute.
When you asked everybody turned off,
I forgot.
Okay. Let me continue. A third dwelling unit in an existing detached garage on a property with 15,200 square feet, whereas 120,000 square feet is required. The parcel is located at 427 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation Elderly and Town Center Overlay Districts, Tax Map 5D-4, Lot 76, case number 2016. This is a continuation from February and March meetings.
Good evening,
Well, we know the button's on.
Mr. Chairman and members. I try to be careful with it. Attorney Michael, along with Mike Class from my office, regarding the proposal by 427 Highway, DW Highway LLC to allow an additional dwelling unit on property that it owns at 427 DW. You have this plan. There's nothing new that you don't have in your packets. I want to make that clear. This plan, I've delineated the boundaries of the lot in the kind of the orange that you see here. Next to it's the Rivet Funeral Home. There's another residential dwelling located to kind of westerly, northwesterly, if you will, from the parcel. I've pointed out the yellow specifically relates to parking. I want to make it clear that although the jurisdiction for parking isn't technically under the board, I know staff has recommended that we go for further site plan review if this is granted, and we wanted to make sure that it met the parking criteria for the 3 apartments on the property. And I'm showing you those. There's 3 spots in the garage itself that's currently an existing structure built on the property, 3 spots here. We have 5 spots here, so we have 11 spots. We need 10.2 spaces, if you will, fractional for the for what we're proposing. So we have the parking located on the parcel. It's not off-site, it's on-site parking for this particular plant. I'd also point out that this proposal does not request any new construction. The construction is in place. The existing dwelling, which was a duplex, grandfathered many years ago, is located here. The proposal is to allow a further two-bedroom apartment above the garage that Mr. Rivet built on this particular site. He intended to use it and does use it, in particular the parking in the lower level, for his funeral home operation. I want to make that clear. But the balance of it he really doesn't need right now, and the request is to allow the use of this particular portion of the building for this purpose, which we think is a good purpose and a reasonable purpose. It does not create a significant impact to the area itself. A little bit of history. This particular parcel is a grandfathered lot of record. No secret there. And in fact, if you move up the Daniel Webster Highway or down the highway, north or south, you're going to find that there are many of these smaller, well under 20,000 square foot parcels located along the road. This area is one of the first, how do I put this, developed areas in Merrimack, and it still remains it does remain as the oldest developed part of the town when you move up and down the Daniel Webster Highway. I think we all know that. Continuing, this is in the town center overlay district, and many of you may remember that particular issue. I was around, and I know that I met with Jay Mincara on a number of occasions. He was the planner at the time when the town center proposal was brought to fruition. If Jay Mincara had had his way, because I recall our discussions, he would have wanted to create something a little bit, how do I put this politely, more intense than what was actually proposed and done. Jay was a believer that he wanted to create a town center in Merrimack, to have multiple uses, to more or less create a downtown, if you will, for the town. The theory being that above commercial buildings, we would allow residential apartments, and again, the density would be a little bit greater than what might otherwise be allowed. I'd point out that there's an interesting kind of conflict in our regulation. It says the following. The minimum lot size is what, 20,000 square feet in the zone? Does everybody remember that? Then it says in section 2.0213C, permitted uses, residential uses are permitted anywhere within the town center district. So that's kind of an interesting byplay, isn't it? It's interesting that somehow we need to conform to 40,000 square feet for residents when the regulation says 20,000 and residential uses are allowed as a matter of right. I'm not going to beat up on that. I only pointed out it's kind of a funny inconsistency. We could interpret it as saying, well, 20,000, Greg, relates to the creation of new lots. Well, if it does, I ought to be able to put a residence on it. I'm not going to argue that. We don't conform to the square footage requirement under any theory of the regulation. So we'll just leave that alone. I only pointed that out for what it's worth. But the whole theory of this district was to allow a greater intensity of use, to allow a mixed use. And I don't need to remind the board that this area, and Mike will bring it up in a bit more detail, I don't want to steal his thunder, that in this area is a multitude of uses. From industrial located nearby, you've got commercial, you've got residential, you've got multifamily. It is a veritable panoply, if you will, of different uses in this particular area. We believe that this request is consistent with the original goal that was laid out for the town center, to create a more, how do I put it, downtown feel. It was to create a vibrant, according to Mincara, I pulled out some old notes that he and I had this discussion, a vibrant and robust town center where people could walk to services, where they could go to different things. And if you know, this is near the CVS, it's not far. It's near Watson Park, not far. Near several restaurants you can walk to. I mean, this does kind of fill in that gap. And what we're looking for is one additional two-bedroom apartment in a building, as I say, that's constructed. We're not going to add anything to the site, but renovate that upstairs into the two-bedroom unit. We think that that's a viable request. I'm just checking my notes. I think I've indicated what I would like to the board initially.
That's the case.
That's pretty much it, I think. And I'd like Mike to go through the criteria, and I do appreciate the board's attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Michael.
Is that on now?
Should be.
All right. Thank you, Michael Class. With
A little closer.
all right, how's that?
It's on.
I'll get closer. Let me reorganize my notes here. So I'm not going to reiterate all the facts. I will note, one of the
Actually, could you just read through the criteria? I think we got a good impression from Attorney Michael
Okay.
as far as what wants to be accomplished. If we could go through the criteria and get that read into record, that would be great.
Sure. If I will briefly read them, if I may just, I just have a quick list, and it goes to the character of the neighborhood of the surrounding, the specific uses.
We actually, we're all pretty familiar with that neighborhood
Okay.
and that area. I appreciate that. If you,
No, I hear you. I just didn't want to, sell
Understand.
the application short. So,
Nope.
so the first prong here is, and I'll pause afterward if you have any questions. I know that's
Thank you.
how you like to approach this. So, apologies if it's redundant. I will do my best to be clear yet concise. So, the first prong in the statutory framework is that granting this variance will not be contrary to the public interest. As the courts have said, to be contrary to the public interest, the variance must in an unduly and marked manner conflict with the ordinance such that it conflicts with the basic zoning objectives. So obviously that begs the question, what are the zoning objectives here? First of all, minimum lot area goes to density. There's always this overriding interest in preserving the health, safety, welfare, and convenience. That comes from the ordinance introduction, section 1.01. Excuse me. And then specifically, because this is in the town center district, section 2.02.13A is to encourage mixed land uses. So here, a third dwelling unit, it's proposed for a portion of upper floors of an existing garage. As such, there's going to be no building envelope changed. While the total density will increase slightly, there's going to be no additional building infrastructure required. There's adequate parking, water, and sewer on the site. The proposed dwelling will not materially change the use of the particular lot, nor will it change the use of the neighborhood. I have a list if you would like to hear it, but I will tell you that we've done a quick inventory of the immediate neighborhood, and there's, we believe, 5 multifamily dwellings, being 3 or more residential units, in addition to commercial, industrial, gas station, fire station, et cetera. So in light of the above, the requested relief does not conflict with the purpose of the ordinance, and granting the variance will not be contrary to the public interest.
Any questions on the board?
Okay.
Please.
Moving on to number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. Again, this is similar to the public interest prong. The rationale for minimum area is to encourage safe and appropriate residential development of reasonable density. Again, the purpose of the town center district is to allow for varied land uses. So putting those two things together in light of the specific elements of this particular property, the proposed third dwelling, it's serviced by municipal water and sewer. There's reasonable parking plan that we've put together. It's consistent with the rationale and spirit of the ordinance. It's not going to expand the garage's building envelope. It seeks to use certain unused space in the upper portion of the garage in a safe and reasonable manner, and in a way that's consistent with the existing diverse neighborhood, which includes various multifamily, including the adjacent property just to the north, which is a five family, for the record. As such, the spirit of the ordinance, which ultimately seeks to promote health, safety, welfare, and convenience, is observed in this particular ordinance. Likewise, the spirit of the town center district is also observed. In conclusion, the requested relief observes the spirit of the zoning ordinance.
Any questions? Proceed.
Hearing none. The third prong, granting this variance will do substantial justice. Sort of the test for substantial justice is a balancing test. It's done when the loss of denying a variance exceeds the gain to the public in strictly enforcing the ordinance. Here, denying the requested variance will not result in an appreciable gain to the public because the proposed dwelling is designed to use existing space on the property's garage. The proposed dwelling will be used consistently with the district's permitted uses. A three-family property is consistent with other multifamily dwellings in the neighborhood, including the adjacent five-family next door. The proposed unit will not threaten the public health, safety, or welfare of the town, as the property can adequately and safely support another dwelling unit. On the other hand, denying the application will result in substantial loss to the applicant by preventing the safe and reasonable use of what is currently storage space and by preventing the use of property in a manner that's consistent with his neighbors and the neighborhood. Therefore, granting the variance application will do substantial justice.
Any questions? Proceed, please.
Moving on to the fourth prong, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished in this application. The requested relief seeks to add a third dwelling unit. It's consistent with the other multifamily dwellings in the area. The proposed unit will be used in a manner consistent with the neighborhood. As such, it's not going to produce different or significant traffic, noise, or odors or other detrimental impacts to the surrounding area. Specifically, we've gone through the effort of putting together a parking plan to ensure safe parking on the site. As Attorney Michael noted, the staff has recommended site plan review. As such, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. Excuse me. Any questions?
Okay.
Fifth and finally, the unnecessary hardship. So, owing to special... Sorry?
Sorry.
No, excuse me. Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because there's no fair or substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application of that provision to the property. Here, as we've discussed, the purpose of the minimum area requirement is to ensure adequate density. And then there's always the overriding purpose of health, safety, welfare, and convenience. At the same time, the purpose of the town center overlay is to allow for more varied and relatively intensive uses of the property. In this case, the property is located in the town center overlay. This location is serviced by town water and sewer. Parking, we've addressed. These factors combined with the property size and existing improvements supports a higher density than what might otherwise be appropriate. The proposal before this board contemplates a modest increase of one additional unit in a freestanding garage. The configuration will allow for the three dwellings to exist on the property safely and reasonably, and this proposal is consistent with the existing character of the neighborhood, which contains other multifamily dwellings and various commercial uses. As such, as applied to this particular piece of property, there's no substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the property. And the second prong in the unnecessary hardship is that this proposed use is reasonable because it contemplates residential use, which is allowed as a matter of right in the district. The fact that it's reasonable is highlighted by the adjacent five-family dwelling next door. And finally, the use is reasonable. The property benefits from town water and sewer. We have a parking plan which will ensure safe use and utilities are adequate. In conclusion, we believe this application satisfies the statutory requirements and justifies approval.
Any questions? All right. I actually have a couple of questions. First and foremost, I'm all for mixed use. And I don't know if either of you gentlemen can actually speak. I know that we've seen this property before and have approved things. So the garage is built, but the apartment on top is not.
Correct.
So
it was not. It was not.
So it's a flat roof. He wants to build an apartment there. I'm just
No,
is that
the building is in existence. The second story is in existence. It's just there's not an apartment in that space.
That's
I was
correct.
there. I was there today, and I didn't see. I guess I didn't
It's
make out
just
what the
empty
apartment
space.
is.
No, we're here because it's empty space right now. When he built it to possibly use some of that extra space for the funeral home.
Okay.
He's not using that space. He doesn't believe he's going to need the space. He does use two of the garages underneath for the funeral home. The balance of it is available for use.
And again, I don't have any problem with mixed use, and he's been in here, and I think he's done a very good job with that site, and
He's cleaned it up
the
a
house
lot.
and cleaned it up. And,
That's correct.
But guess I'm just kind of. He seems like he's every other month.
This is it.
He seems to be doing
Patrick,
it all. So are
Patrick,
we in the final
Patrick,
stages here?
Patrick, this is it.
I have to ask if Mark thought this whole thing wasn't going to go, if he brought it before us in total, and he had to bring
I
it
don't think he had that.
separately?
I don't think he had that.
I'm just saying, this is an impression that's there. I have no problem with what he's done.
I apologize for the impression, but people build thinking they're going to you know I know you know where I'm going with this, so I'll just spare you that and
It would have spared us all.
thank you, Lynn.
No, I
appreciate that.
And it's and it, you know, and just I was just curious if there was going to be anything else.
No.
All right.
Famous last words.
Yes.
Well, no, not as it relates to this. If someone buys the place and wants to reuse it, I can't predict that, Patrick.
All right. No, I
Okay?
understand. I'm not asking you to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Wasn't there this?
Pardon me?
Just a minute. Wasn't this space supposed to be used for storage at one time? And that's why he did it?
It was, but he doesn't need it.
He doesn't need it.
He doesn't need it. He also owns another building. He owns the crematorium. I mean, he owns other space, and he just doesn't need the space.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Okay. I was just curious. I was thinking the same way as Lynn and Pat saying, why didn't he do this? Give us the whole ball of wax now.
I wasn't involved at that time, Tony. I
But
wasn't
actually,
here.
I like the idea of having additional rental space in the center of town. I think it's needed. I think it will be a benefit to the town.
All right. Is there any other questions for the gentleman before us? Okay. I will open up the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this variance? Is there anybody that would like to speak against this variance? All right. I will close the public hearing. And any discussion from the board?
I'll make a motion.
That would be the next step.
I would. I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
All right.
Knee-jerk reaction, pretty condensed area. Step back, look at the proposals that the planning board's working on to diversify the housing stock, etc. Brand new, clean, safe unit right smack in the middle of town, walking distance to all kinds of amenities. It probably makes sense. Thank you.
Was that a motion?
So, someone like to make a motion? Or
I'll make a motion that we grant the variance with the following conditions: that the applicant shall obtain site plan approval from the planning board for the proposed multifamily residence.
you have to read the variance then.
You want me to read what? I'm new. All right. That we grant the variance under section 3.02 to permit the creation of a third dwelling unit in an existing detached garage on a property with 15,200 square feet, whereas 120,000 square feet is required. Parcel is located at 427 DW Highway in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation, Elderly, and Town Center Overlay Districts. Tax map 5D-4, lot 76.
Second.
I have a second. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
That's 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Attorney Michael. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Next up is 17 Outlets LLC petitioner owner variance under section 2.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit a retail use in an industrial 2 I-2 district. The parcel is located at 17 Premium Outlets Boulevard in the I-2 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 3C lot 191-03, case number 2016-18. If you just make sure that you sign in as well.
All right.
Hold on. Attorney Michael, did you gentlemen sign in? Okay, all right. Just double check it. Thank you. Have a good evening. You can state your name and
Christopher Sendis.
great. You want to give us a kind of 50 words or less overview of what we're looking at, and then go into the points of law. Please.
We're looking to get a variance to allow a retail establishment in I-2 zoning. The property is located at the entrance to the Marriott Mac Premium Outlet Mall. It's where the Starbucks, Qdoba, and DCU are currently located. And there had been a frozen yogurt establishment that didn't work out. So we're looking to get a Sprint phone store in there.
Would be where the frozen yogurt store is.
Correct.
That's great. If you could read the 5 points, and just stop after each. So if we have any questions, please. Thank you.
Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. The given site is at the entrance to one of the largest retail centers in the state, allowing for retail business at this location. Minimally increases the amount of retail space available in the neighborhood. It would not noticeably increase traffic to the site, if at all, and the parking required is less than what would be required for a restaurant. The store hours would not be open earlier or close later than the adjacent restaurants. The store is of a benign nature, and the use of the space as retail would not negatively affect the surrounding properties.
Any questions? Sir.
Can you specify again where this is going to be? So I want to make sure I was looking at the right spot.
It's at the entrance to Premium Outlet Mall. There's, when you turn right to go at the traffic light to go up, it's the building on the right. There's a Starbucks and a
As you're going up the
Qdoba restaurant.
hill, There's a series of properties right there,
Yeah.
halfway up the hill. This is the first one.
Oh, okay. Now I know where you are.
So just to clarify, this is this variance is just so that you can put a business in a place that's designated for a business.
It's currently, well, it's zoned I-2.
Put retail in a
I-2
restaurant designated business.
If I may, yeah, the fact that it's a retail use is not allowed in the zone, but the restaurants are, so that's why the restaurants are okay, but that's why he's here.
Right.
So
Correct.
That's the little
It's an
quirk to it.
existing building.
Okay. Well, yeah. That, I was wondering why this. Okay. Yes.
Use.
Makes sense.
I guess the zoning I-2 allows banks,
We know.
restaurants,
Yeah.
hotels. So,
All right. Number 2.
number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because mobile communications have become a vital part of daily life, both personal and commercial, providing a closer outlet for such services that many find indispensable, allows people and companies to more easily access the services and equipment they need. I-2 zoning allows for support uses. Mobile communications could be considered a new support use. For instance, some people's primary interaction with their bank is through their mobile phone. Any questions?
You can proceed.
All right. 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice because mercantile use is the primary component of the closest abutter, the outlet mall. And the outlet mall appears to approve of and prefer the property be used for retail than most uses allowed by I-2 zoning. A document titled Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions and Grant of Easements Affecting Real Property on file with Hillsborough County describes a relationship between the ownership interests of the outlet mall and us. It declares acceptable uses for the property in Article 5.1 to be retail stores, commercial enterprises, restaurants, related recreational uses, and uses similar. It further limits uses in Article 5.3 with one limitation preventing industrial or warehouse uses. The other abutter is a Fidelity Office Park, and given the nature of the abutters, the I-2 zoning for this site might not be quite as appropriate as it used to be.
Any questions? Okay.
Number 4, for the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. The given property has already been constructed. The exterior appearance and site improvements will not change except for signage that will abide by local ordinances. The aforementioned covenants limit the nature of any retail business to one that would likely be considered acceptable in any location that allows mercantile uses. The nature and volume of traffic to the site should not noticeably change due to the change in use.
Any questions? All right.
And number 5, unnecessary hardship. Owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because, 1, no fair or substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because the closest abutter, the outlet mall, is almost entirely retail in nature. It has its own conditional use permit that greatly changed the use of that property from the I-2 zoning that it had been subject to. The other abutter, Fidelity, is a large office campus with probably no industrial use and only accessory storage use, if at all. Furthermore, the structures on that site are not visible from our site. And then 2, the proposed use is reasonable, 1, because our property is adjacent to one of the largest retail centers in the state. Since we necessarily have to traverse their property to enter ours, it seems reasonable that we should have similar zoning restrictions. Also, if the property were to be used as many of the zoning uses allow, it would detract from the MPO experience, potentially making it a less successful mall, which is why we have the covenants with them. And then the other abutter, Fidelity, is across a 6-lane boulevard, and their buildings are substantially set back from the road.
Does everybody feel that he's met the first part of unnecessary hardship?
Yes.
I have a question, or
Yes.
I just have a comment. You refer to your closest abutters.
Yes.
Your closest abutters are a restaurant and a credit union. I'm not arguing with what you're trying to do, but your closest abutters are a restaurant and a credit union, not Fidelity, not the outlet mall.
There also seems to be a little speculation in there as well under hardship in some other areas. But no, I mean, I get what you're coming here for, but it just seems like there's a little more speculation in there. And I would agree with Lynn that your closest abutters are Starbucks, and those are your abutters. So, do we feel that the unnecessary hardship has been met? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Tony, did you have a question?
Well, I just can't see the one. Am I reading this right or I'm not? It says the experience potentially making it less successful for the mall. Are you trying to tell me this one store's going to knock the mall completely out?
No.
I'm
That's
trying
my
to
comment
understand.
about your
There's
closest
2
abutters.
out of 3 locations in here, so that's a 66% usage of the property. I think that's absolutely reasonable to want to have anyone, regardless of who the business is in there, to make it successful. I mean, you think about other places where stores have closed, people don't tend to shop there.
Right.
And if I could comment on the abutter thing, it actually, he is right, going by the state definition, it actually goes by the lot, not by the individual units that he's in, so that's kind of,
I
it
understand.
relates to his point. But I get yours too.
Are there any other questions, concerns, thoughts, comments? All right. I'll open this up for a public discussion. Is there anybody out there that would like to comment for this petition? Is there anybody out there that would like to comment against this petition? I will close the public hearing. Further discussion by the board and/or a motion.
Motion to grant 17 outlets.
Hold on.
It's all right, go ahead.
Discussion.
Sorry.
Point? No.
No, my point was, I think this is a small parcel, and the intensity of use for this particular instance is less than if we were doing a restaurant, which is allowed. So I think it's reasonable. But go ahead and make a motion.
Actually, I was going to say something like that earlier because you'd think it.
I still think that the hardship is a weak.
So you're going to vote against it?
You're not speaking for me, am I?
I'm asking.
All right, let him
We'll find out when I
let him
vote.
finish. Let him finish.
I'm just saying that the hardship is kind of a weak point there. I just don't see that much of a hardship.
I think the hardship is much stronger than the way the ordinance is worded, honestly,
How do you figure?
because they'll let a restaurant operate in an I-2 area, but they won't let a retail operate. Wouldn't you think that a restaurant would have a higher level of requirement based on handling food, sewage, all the other things that go into a restaurant, and that's allowed. And we're talking about a store where maybe one person will use the bathroom twice a day, and that's it. I mean, the impact on the environment is substantially less with a retail than a restaurant.
No, I'm just saying that maybe the hardship segment could have been written a little better.
Oh,
a little
okay.
stronger
Yes,
than what it is.
No question.
No question about that.
yes.
Patrick, if I may, to me, the hardship is you can't identify and list every possible use of a piece of property in the world. And this property, it's commercial. That's what it is. It really has no choice. You're not going to put a house there. You're using an existing footprint in the first
Well, I
place.
understand that. I'm just saying that it could have been written a little better.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm just a simple man, as Bill O'Reilly would say. I like a little more clarification.
Well, this is my
This has been
first
written
time
by a
sitting
lawyer,
here,
by the
so.
way. The lawyers must have written this up.
No, I did this.
You're not a lawyer?
No, I'm an architect.
Even worse.
And so
Wow.
my-
Okay.
Make a motion, save us.
Make a motion so we
Yeah.
can.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve 17 Outlets LLC variance under section 2.02.4 of the zoning ordinance to permit a retail use in the industrial I-2 district. The parcel is located at 17 Premium Outlets Boulevard in the I-2 industrial and aquifer conservation districts and wellhead protection area, tax map 3C, lot 191-3, case number 2016-18.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstain? 5-0. Petition carries.
You're done.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Next up, Jessica Lott petitioner and Timothy Lott owner, variance under section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of an enclosed porch within 23.5 feet of the front property line, whereas 30 feet is required. The parcel is located at 17 Miriam Road in the R Residential District, tax map 6A-2, lot 042, case number 2016-19. Could you swear in the witness? She just walked in when you were swearing in before. So if you could just swear her in, Lynn.
Please stand and raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
You just sign in and make sure the green dot is on. You want to give us a kind of a 50 words or less of what you're looking to do, and then go into the point of law.
Okay. So we are looking to add an enclosed porch onto the front of our home, and it'll be within 23.5 feet of the property line from Miriam Road, and 30 feet is required. So we were just hoping to get a variance granted for that. So.
Okay. So if you could, you have the 5 points right now. If you could just read those in, that would be great.
Yep.
And stop after each. We may have questions.
Okay.
Can you bring the microphone a little closer to you, ma'am?
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest. Public interest regarding property and the construction of the dwellings and dwelling enhancements on the property per Town of Merrimack zoning ordinance and building code section 3.02.1 is focused on maintaining clean ground and subsurface water, proper sewage and other contamination management, respect for sensitive lands within the community, minimal to zero impact on town support infrastructure, and attendant costs therein, and overall sustenance of enhancements of surrounding property values. Granting a variance for this enclosed porch has no impact on town water, property sewage, or other contamination management or sensitive town lands. Indeed, the proposed porch will enhance the overall look of the home, enhance the property value, and be constructed commensurate with the construction best practices to fit with the other property improvements in the area. This is all consistent with being in the public interest.
Questions? All right, number 2.
Okay. the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the proposed enclosed porch does not impact those critical criteria stipulated in Section 3.01.1 as stated above, and will enhance the overall look and street appeal of the home, enhance the property value, improve the use of the home, and be constructed commensurate with the construction best practices to fit with other property improvements in that area.
Questions? All right, number 3.
Granting the variance would do substantial justice because the proposed enclosed porch will A, enhance the property value of 17 Merriam Road, B, enable the property owner to realize better living conditions through 1, less heat loss through the front entrance and as it's currently constructed, 2, eliminate front door interference from snow load on the current awning over the front entrance, and 3, provide an area for storing muddy and snowy boots, shoes, wet clothing, and otherwise must reside inside the front entrance in a severely constrained space. C, complement the neighborhood as many of the homes display various enhancements. And D, provide a level and direct access to the home front entrance for a wheelchair. Because I have MS, and at some point down the road I may need to convert that into a ramp.
Any other questions, concerns on that one? Number 4.
For the following reasons, the value of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. The proposed enclosed porch does not impact those critical criteria stipulated in Section 3.01.1 as stated in number 1 above, and will enhance the overall look and street appeal of the home, enhance the property value, improve the use of the home, and be constructed with construction best practices to fit the other property improvements in that area. The exterior of the finished enclosed porch will mesh with the existing home exterior. Attractive windows will be installed looking out towards Merriam Road as well as laterally.
Any questions?
Okay. And unnecessary hardship. Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because 1, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because the proposed enclosed porch meets the stated sensitive criteria as stipulated in Section 3.02.1 purpose and possesses the net effect of enhancing the property value and street appeal of 17 Merriam Road. The overall lot size severely limits what a homeowner can do to enhance both the utility, economy, and curb appeal of the property, necessitating a variance to perform these necessary changes. And number 2, the proposed use is a reasonable one because access to the front entrance to this property needs to be enhanced. The proposed enclosed porch accomplishes these needs by providing the following, all in concert with the purpose as stated in 3.01.1 Residential Land Use District. A much more economical and weather-resilient access to the front entrance. B, added storage for foul weather gear. C, enhanced property value and curb appeal. And D, future wheelchair accommodation should that become necessary.
Does everybody feel that the first 2 were... I was answered. Okay, you don't need to read B. Any questions for petitioner? Okay. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Is there anybody out there that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anybody out there that would like to speak against this petition? Close the public hearing. Is there any questions of the petitioner, comments from the board, or motions?
Mr. Chairman.
Tony.
Okey dokey. I make a motion thank you. What would I do without you? I know. Grant this variance under Section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of an enclosed porch within 23.50 feet of the front property line, whereas 30 feet is required. The parcel is located at 17 Merriam Road in the R Residential District, Tax Map 6A-2, Lot 042, Case 2016-19.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstain? 500. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Petition passes. Just so you know, there is a 30-day window in which somebody can appeal this. So if you can start construction within the 30 days of today, it is at your own risk. After that, you are all set.
Okay.
Good
Thank
luck.
you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Side comment, I love that, the formatting of that, of the 5 points.
Did better than the architect.
Thank you. The next petition, Joshua Naughton, trustee, applicant for 53 Pearson Street Realty Trust, owner, equitable waiver of dimensional requirements under section 2.02.7A4 of the zoning ordinance to permit a 4-foot encroachment of front stairs and porch in the 40-foot wetland setback. The parcel is located at 53 Pearson Road in the R Residential and Wetlands Conservation District tax.
Sorry.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Tax map 7D lot 011-01, case number 2016-20. Mr. Naughton?
Mr. Bird, Jeff Bird, I'm the engineer for the builder.
Mr. Bird, if you want to give us kind of a 50 words or less what we're looking at and get into the points, that would be great.
Yeah, and we are looking for an equitable waiver to allow the front steps and porch to be in the wetland buffer. I was here last fall, and we received a variance from you folks to allow the building to actually be within the buffer.
Was this the house that was kind of, the foundation was laid, was a little, is that the one with the house?
There was no house built at the time.
Okay.
It was an old lot of record, and what happened was my client bought it, and before he had a chance to pull the building permit, the variance that he had expired.
Okay.
And so we came back in and got that renewed, and now here we are back again. Maybe a little bit more homework, a little bit more survey, whatever we needed might have precluded this, but nonetheless, it was an oversight on our part, not thinking that the front steps and the front porch would fit within the setback. So when we discovered that it couldn't, that's when we made application. And here I am again. Yes.
So, just for clarification, those are the steps?
Those are the steps, yes.
Okay.
Can
Yeah.
I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. This is the first time you've come in front of us?
No, I was here last November.
Wasn't there this house looks so familiar to me.
The house,
when you came to us the first time, was this house built?
No.
There was just a lot.
lot of record, yeah.
Because I look at this building and there's similar steps and a similar situation that came about.
I'm thinking the same one.
Huh? Could be.
Okay. That's why I asked that question.
Okay,
Same
all right,
thing, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and actually, we had a favorable December, I think weather-wise, and I think they got they just charged ahead on it.
I'm probably thinking of another area that the chairman here was describing, so.
Yeah,
Continue on. I'm sorry
Okay.
I interrupted you.
that's fine, yeah. So I'll go through the 3 questions.
Please.
Okay. The nonconformity was discovered after the structure was substantially completed by the builder upon seeking a certificate of occupancy from the town building department. The violation was not an outcome of ignorance of the law, failure to inquire, obfuscation, misrepresentation, or bad faith, but was instead caused by good faith error in measurement made by the builder and builder's agent by not realizing how close a building is to the front setback line, and not anticipating the size of the stairs, including the landing, that is needed to provide suitable access to the front door. The finished floor elevation is approximately 36 inches above the finished grade, which requires 4 steps with the landing in order to overcome the grade differential. The stairs are approximately 7 feet deep, which includes a landing, where there is 3 to 5 feet distance from the setback line to the main house structure. Furthermore, applicant had received a variance from the Zoning Board of Adjustment on November 18th, 2015, at which time they would have included the front stairs in that application had they anticipated the need for larger front entry stairs and the limited area in order to fit the stairs.
Any questions? So the initial plan called for stairs on the front porch, right? Well, I'm just saying is that I don't have the initial plan, but did the initial, I would imagine if the builder was building the house, the plans called for these steps to be there.
Not necessarily, because like I said, I didn't anticipate the grade separation between the house is raised pretty high because of the wet soils.
Okay.
So the house is pretty far out of the ground, more so than normal. Usually you'd look at like,
I can see the foundation.
yeah, more than a foot. I mean, about a foot out of the ground, and this one was put up because of the groundwater so high in that area. So I think that was the thing that was missed, was we thought it'd be, maybe there would have been a landing out front, and we thought that there was enough room for that landing, but then to add the 4 stairs in addition to that, it takes you that much further into the setback.
Right, I'm just saying, like, when they built the house, they laid the foundation, nobody saw this. I mean, once you laid the foundation, you realize that, when you're laying that foundation, you realize that it's going to sit up higher than what a normal house foundation will. Nobody kind of thought that this was going to happen, I mean, back in November, thought that this was going to happen or foresaw it. I mean, because if the original, and I don't remember, I'm sure I was on the board when the petition was heard.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I just find it interesting that you knew that the builder knows that the wetlands are there, the owner knows the wetlands are there, the building designer knows the wetlands are there. They see that they have to put the house the foundation a little bit higher because of the soil, and nobody came forward to say, hey, we might have a little bit of a problem here. I'm just kind of concerned from a builder, a building designer, and a homeowner. Not recognizing that until the house is actually built. I'm kind of curious on it.
It might have been a communication issue too, because I'm the one that was here with the board. I wasn't out building the house with the site super. Maybe he did notice it. He didn't inform me until and he might have informed me. They might have kept going on the house.
Right.
Before they, stopped.
Yeah, Lenny.
In many communities, the bulkheads, steps do not.
Lenny, can you turn your microphone on?
They're not considered part of the house.
Okay.
They're accessory to.
Okay.
If they can bury one of the steps, they can eliminate 12 inches of the encroachment. It's that.
And I'm not trying to belabor the point and get into a battle. I was just kind of curious as to why now we're hearing about it almost 6 months after.
Somebody didn't think about it at the time.
Just didn't think hard enough about it. I think when we did figure out there was a problem, like this gentleman was saying, a lot of towns, if it's not part of the structure,
sure,
it's not a structure, so it's not. It is permitted in setbacks.
Okay.
And so I think there was that interpretation and clarification on that first. I think, and in the ordinance, I think there's one statement that says, and we might have confused the two, that if it doesn't have an enclosure over it, that it's not part of the structure. Okay. So I think we were trying to clarify that too at the same time. And
I'm just curious as to why it's coming to light now. That's why and it wasn't meant to argue or anything. Like that. Just
and
kind of curious as to why.
And then there's our internal problems as far as communication between the site super and me and the boss at the office and
Right. Did you have a question?
I think if you look at the picture, if you eliminate the landing and just put the steps in front of the house, then you eliminate the 4-foot shortage.
I agree.
But as far as I'm concerned, having the landing there is a benefit to the house.
Yeah, I think you need the,
So
I just think it's a benefit anyway.
So, part of the reason I bring it up is this, and so the front steps are in the wetland. So
No,
or
in the buffer.
In the buffer.
They're not
So
in wetland.
what's going to lead up to the steps? It's not going to be grass. So now you're going to have to build a walkway in
Yes.
the wetland and the buffer.
The buffer.
And then if they want to do anything on the other side of the walkway, that's further in the buffer and then into the wetland. I'm not. My only concern is that what we're looking at isn't the finished landscaped property, and so my concern question would be, what else is going to end up in that buffer? And I understand what you're saying about the stairs and bulkheads and stuff like that, and I get that. I'm just, you're gonna have to put down either concrete stairs or stone or because nobody's
even
going to
if-
have grass going right up to the front door like
Even
that.
if the stairs didn't impact the buffer,
Yep.
you could still have a walkway in that buffer that we wouldn't be concerned about.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm not sure maybe about the numbers, but, because I asked that same question, but is it the 40? What's the number? There's the building setback, and then there's there's another setback, which is less than the, I'm drawing a blank on the
That's
names
okay.
of them. But because they want to build a patio in the back too, and that became a topic of discussion as to whether or not that could be built in that buffer, and in fact it can be, and the walkway can be. But you can't build anything within, I think is it 25 or 15 feet, whatever,
I think it's
whatever the
15,
distance is, and I'm sorry, I forget the numbers, but, so we did talk about the walkway, and in fact, there's a patio that's going in the back that's going to be in part of that buffer, so to speak.
Okay.
But I guess it's an allowed thing, yeah.
Just a
Okay.
question. So. All right.
Yeah, and it's a tight lot, there's, it's almost 5 acres, but you have this little area that meets the criteria, and it is an old lot of record, so, if I could turn back the clock, I wish I caught all this stuff back then and had it in front of you.
The only thing that, and I'm just trying to process this. We actually had a case similar to this where the encroachment was a couple of inches, and it was purely a measurement error. I guess my concern is, based on some of the things, here about, not taking into account the steps for one reason or another. I think it's kind of hard to prove that this was not due to ignorance of the ordinance or failure to inquire or obfuscation. I think it's kind of tough to prove that. And I guess my point is not that, I guess given how hard it is to kind of prove that, given what has happened, it's this specific lot, I think there might be other ways of, handling this. Like I know you mentioned building a deck, which could require variance, and that's when we have issues with properties where we have non-conforming lots, we deal with that kind of thing all the time. I just think it's going to be really tough to prove that this truly was not. I mean, because really, what that B or the number 1 section here is saying that you just didn't pay attention to the ordinance, and I think that's unfortunately exactly what happened.
No, I didn't say that.
I'm going by mostly what's here, so I don't think. 4 feet is not like we mismeasured by a couple of inches. It's 4 feet. And you'd made the comment earlier that there was an assumption made about how the steps would be kind of like, that it wouldn't be considered part of the setback, and then afterwards it was. And so that comment made me think, well, you can't say that that's not ignorance of the ordinance, or that's not a failure to to ask the question. I mean, I totally understand the situation. I'm just saying, in my mind, I can't make that link. That's all.
Yeah, I think what was missed was the actual distance from the front of the building to the setback, and understanding the size of the steps you need in there. You know, so it was a combination of the two, not just the grade difference itself, but thinking that there was enough distance in that setback. I think I tried to make that clear in here. Yeah, by not realizing how close the building is to the setback line, and then not anticipating, so it was a combination of the two. You know, and not anticipating the size of the stairs, including the landing. You know, I guess at some point when they sited the house, for instance, if the house wasn't set up at that grade, you know, maybe a 3-foot landing would have fit without the stairs. You know, I think that's what was. So it wasn't ignorance.
Well, no, I'm not saying that what was done was you know was the worst thing in the world or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's clear that this was missed, and I think it's tough to when the house was just built. I think it's kind of tough to prove these criteria, especially that one. And that's all I'm saying is that I just think it's a. You know, because I mean, if anyone were to have noticed that, oh yeah, we have a difference in elevation, which means longer steps, most people at that point would stop and say, okay, we need a variance. That didn't happen. That's my concern, because to me that is the definition of ignorance of the ordinance. Because it would have been very easy to stop and say, hold on, we've got bigger steps, let's get a variance, and that's not the kind of thing that I think there would have been an issue with. I think it's just that we're past that, and unfortunately, that's just what the ordinance states. That's the only thing I'm concerned with.
What is your question?
I'm sitting here conversing with Lenny. It looks to me like.
Can you turn your microphone on?
Sorry. Looks to me like 4 feet is about the length of the steps themselves, not the landing. If those steps come in from the side rather than the front, I don't think you need a variance.
So you come off and you turn, and the steps come this way along the side of the house. I see what you're saying. Yeah, you wouldn't have. You wouldn't
Am I
be sitting
correct?
here.
Four steps is 4 feet.
Well, no,
But
I'm
it's
saying-
sideways
Correct.
rather than into it, and I think that solves your problem, and you don't need a variance. You've got to rebuild the steps, but that's minor.
We have 3 feet from the face to the setback on one side and 5 feet on the other. So 3 feet is a pretty narrow landing. Typically, you have a 4-foot landing.
I'm just suggesting,
Yeah.
if you have the steps come in from the side instead of the front, I think you may not need a variance. And that may be worth looking at.
Because it's not the variance that would concern me. It's the fact that it's an equitable waiver which follows different criteria than a variance. That's my only concern.
And I, based on what Rich was saying, I think it's failure to inquire. The house had to be. The house was. You got the original variance to do the home. I realize it's a tricky plot. I would thought that the site supervisor, if they were experienced, knowing it's tricky, realizing that the foundation has been raised, and knowing that he or she has a very tight space to build in, that if there was a miss like this, it's almost similar to the one that we saw where they ended up putting the foundation, 4 feet into the, or whatever, or 3 feet into the wetlands or whatever that was.
I think you might want to investigate doing the side steps and come back before us if we need to.
Microphone.
I mean, we can go through the other 2 points, and we can discuss this, and then we can vote on it. But
But you're going to die.
well, I mean, no, I mean, you've got 3 people right now that are kind of really not are thinking that there was definitely a failure of communication, a failure of inquiry, in my eyes.
A good solution.
On the solution for this. So,
But with all due respect, it's a set of stairs.
I realize
You know, and it's a the walkway is permitted. It's permitted in
Okay.
that area in the front yard.
And I'm not
So
debating
what
that.
we're talking about is 3 concrete steps getting to that landing. That is all I'm asking for. So it's. I know you're talking about the law and all that, but I'm saying in reality, when you look at the site, what we're asking for, I don't see my client saying, let's turn it sideways. It's not going to look right on the house, first of all.
There are other options too. I mean, I wasn't. I'm sorry. I think I misspoke. I think you're right, and I think that there's no reason there shouldn't be steps, but to me, that's not an equitable waiver. That's not what that is. That's a variance.
Well, the town advised me to do an equitable. I don't know the difference one from the other.
Okay.
well, so an equitable waiver is it was built. Oops. You're looking for kind of a forgiveness, so to speak, or a variance is this is what we'd like to do. We know that we're going to be going into a buffer. We're going to be going into a particular area, but we need to do it because the hardship is tricky lot, small area to build on a 5-acre lot. And then you start to get into hardships, substantial justice. You start to talk about, okay, this is the reason we need to do this is because, beyond the aesthetics of the home, because, in order for them to be able to even use the home, we need to be able to do that. So
This is why I don't do zoning boards, because I'm an engineer.
I
I'm not an
get that.
attorney,
I get
you know?
that. So why don't we go into number 2?
No, that's all right. We can quit right now if you want.
No, we don't. What?
I think he has to go through the whole procedure.
He can withdraw if he wants.
You can withdraw if you choose, or you can go through the procedure. And it's. I mean, nobody's voted on anything at this moment. I mean, we were just discussing point 1.
I know.
We still have point 2 and 3. We
I'm
may
just,
or may
you
not
know,
be any discussion on it. I understand your frustration.
With all due respect, I don't do zoning boards. I tell all my clients I don't do zoning boards for this very reason. So it bothers me when I come in and I fail at it. So I'll finish it, but.
Let's just read in point 2 and 3, and then we'll move over. We'll move from there.
Okay. All right, number 2, the physical or dimensional violation does not constitute a public or private nuisance, nor diminish the value of other property in the area, nor interfere with or adversarially affect any present or permissible future uses of any such property for similar reasons that were outlined in the original variance request made last year. The request would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, nor would the request threaten public health, safety, or welfare, and would therefore have no impact on the surrounding area or any abutters. Also, due to the fact that this encroachment is very small, there will be no impact to the wetland area associated with the requested setback. Finally, this is a rural lot in a rural neighborhood with substantial buffers to adjacent properties, and as such will not interfere with or adversely affect any present or permissible future uses of any surrounding properties. And number 3, the cost of correction far outweighs any public benefit to be gained since the encroachment is very small and there will be no adverse impact to the wetlands, but merely within the 40-foot setback associated therewith. Therefore, there will be no substantial relationship between the general public policy of the ordinance and the request being made.
Now, we can move forward, or you can withdraw at this point.
I'd like it to be denied, I guess, for the record.
Okay.
No, I mean, I don't want to withdraw.
Go for a vote or withdraw.
Go for a vote.
Go
Yeah.
for a vote. And so we're going to read the petition in, or
to accept, or are we just going to go for a vote?
I've got a question for Robert.
Microphone.
Lenny's point about bulkheads and steps, I saw you flipping through pages. I didn't know if you were looking this up or not, but does that have anything to do with setbacks, and are they related?
They are, and he is right. The town I came from, they were not considered. But all I have to go on here is the definition of structure in the Merrimack zoning ordinance, which specifically notes, if I don't flip past it, that anything constructed or erected, the use of which demands its permanent location on the land, or anything attached to something permanently located on the land. So that's, in this case, the stairs become a structure, so they do have to count in the setback.
So if it wasn't attached, say that again?
Yeah, if the stairs were not attached, I mean, I don't know how you do that from a building standpoint, but because they're attached, they become a structure, because they're attached to the house, which is permanently
So if we
fixed.
detach them from the house, they're not,
Make a
not
motion
part
or
of the
to call for a
structure.
vote?
That's how I'm reading this.
That's not what we were told.
See, I'm saying
So
anything
we-
constructed or erected, the stairs, they're just kind of placed. The use of which
So they can
demands
be
permanent
placed
location.
on a separate foundation.
But the
separate from
foundation
the
becomes
house.
permanent. So that will,
Well, that's what.
yeah,
well,
so, or anything attached to something permanently
if they were
located
placed-
on the land.
If they were placed on the walkway, that's going to be built there. I was not informed that they could, that if they were detached, it separates it from. Because really, you know how they're attached? They're really not even attached. You put like a metal bracket on the face of the foundation, and the front of the stairs, or the back of the landing sits on that metal bracket. It's not physically
So there's no-
cast into the concrete. It's precast stairs. And,
Right.
and the only thing that does, it's not even really attached. It's just resting on that. That's supporting the back half of it. The front half of it is on dirt, you know? So,
You can see that from the side picture, actually.
so
Yeah, I mean, so I get, in that case, I mean, it's tough. I can see the point that he can make.
I mean, we could just cut it right there. Let it sit separate from the house.
You know, the other aspect that I was looking at, along the lines of his argument, the violation not being noticed or discovered. I mean, in that case, he's probably got a point, because they didn't discover it until the plot plan was put together and they found it. So that can go. The second point, the violation was not an outcome of ignorance of the law, the ordinance, or failure to inquire. That whole section, if you read it in full, is really talking about a deliberate attempt to hide it from anything. And the fact, I think, that they put a plan together and came forward to say, well, we've noticed this error, and we're not trying to hide it. The measurement was off, and you know, so they may have a case there. You want me to read the whole paragraph? No. And then of course the other two. So I mean, it's obviously totally up to the board based on the evidence that he's presented.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I guess maybe I should have made that point too, and I'm not that versed with zoning law and things like that. But that is the point too, is none of this was done intentionally, you know, and we never would have tried to hide it. We knew we had to do the as-built plan to get the CO. So, you know, that's when it really was discovered. So we really thought we had more room, because if you look at the original plan, there was a section of the building on the original zoning plan that we put together. There was a 2-foot bump out on the front. So we knew we picked up 2 feet there, and we knew we had a few feet already. So we thought we had that distance we needed to do it, and so, you know, it was an innocent error, you know?
No, I fully understand.
Okay.
Let me, real quick, because it's going to go real quick. Anybody to speak for or against this petition?
Open the
Okay.
public hearing.
Public hearing is now closed. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion that we grant the equitable waiver of dimensional requirements under section 2.02.7, bracket A, bracket 4 of the zoning ordinance to permit a 4-foot encroachment of front stairs and porch in the 40-foot wetland setback. Parcel is located at 53 Pearson Road in the R Residential and Wetlands Conservation District, tax map 7D, lot 11-01. Can I have a question? This is 53 Pearson Road Realty Trust?
Yes.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Second?
Oh, second. Rich seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstain? So it is 4-0-1.
I appreciate that. And can I tell you a brief story?
Sure.
Briefly.
Briefly.
My own house. I bought my house. Now I'm an engineer. I know zoning law, And I'm in Concord, and come to find out there's 40-foot side yard setbacks, and my house was too close. I had to encroach on the side setback to build a garage.
Yep.
I went in to get a variance, and whatever I said wrong, and I got denied. And ever since then, I've always told my clients, go get an attorney,
So
and
why did you agree to do this?
I don't know. My clients, they talk us into these things, and but anyway, that's I just don't have a knack with zoning law. I guess that's my one crutch in life.
Well, we appreciate your understanding. And
Okay, no, I know what you guys are up against too, so I appreciate you.
have a good evening.
Patience with me.
Make sure you charge extra for this.
Yeah, I would.
that?
Get a little bump from your client for this. Yeah, throw that in a line item in there.
Now, is there a tape that I can play back?
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right. Discussion of possible action regarding other items of concern. Robert? Lynn?
Yes, relative to this, we've had a number of...
Microphone.
Microphone.
We've had a number of instances just recently with people coming to us for a variance for this exact same issue. I would like to see planning department,
That's you.
That's you.
department, not board,
Okay.
department, emphasize to people that we consider these things as well. And I, for one, am not going to be, no, I'm not going to say that.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's something that we ought to emphasize to contractors and builders and architects and everybody else that this is something that we consider, and they should be considering when they're building something that they should not be patios, driveways, steps, whatever it is. They ought to be looking more closely at their plans so that they're not coming to us after the fact for a variance.
I agree, and the reason I brought up the walkway, and I understand what you talked about the stairs, and I understand what you're saying about the stairs, but what's stopping them from putting in an asphalt walkway?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, so an asphalt walkway, that's potential chemicals,
Impermeable, yep.
and that can permeate into the
Yep.
ground and into the soil. And we all know Merrimack's got enough issues with water right now and contamination soil. We don't need to be. So it's one of those things that
I'm just
that's where I was
I'm
heading
just
on it.
seeing-
You know, could they have put in stone? Sure. Could they put in concrete? Sure. But what if they put in asphalt? Because I have seen houses that have had asphalt walkways up to the front, and if they had done that, then that's going to be in the wetlands. So I think that anybody that's building in the wetlands or building near a wetland, there's got to be some sort of.
I'm just
I think
seeing a
extra check and
habit
balance,
of coming before us and saying, oops, the steps are going to encroach on whatever the delineation is. Oops. Start looking at it before you build it, because the next time they come in, we may say, sorry, if you want those steps, you're going to have to move the house back.
The concern that I have, which is actually very different than that, is I think we wind up in debates with things that are non-variance, with special exceptions, with equitable waivers, with appeals to administration, and I think that a lot of people who have been in front of us are used to the fact that it's not a bad idea to have a variance in your back pocket, and we've seen that time and time again. And I think that, if there was, when we have these gray areas where it's subject to interpretation, it's really not, it's no one's place to assume that someone else is going to interpret it the same as them. So I think that maybe we should, when we're looking at things like this, unless it's cut and dry, be discussing this when we're handing out the paperwork. If it's a special exception and it's kind of sitting on it's teetering, maybe, discuss other methods, go into variances right there in the office. So just so that they're, I'd feel really bad if, we were a stickler to ordinance and he had to now write out a variance and come back after already having a bad experience with the zoning board in the past. So I think that it would be a really good idea for us to be discussing variances with anyone who's coming forward with something that's not a variance, especially when it's a gray area.
And to that point, Robert, before you say anything, he was ready. I mean, his equitable waiver got approved. I realize you abstained for your own reasons, but his equitable waiver approved. But he was about ready to just pull his equitable waiver out, and then he would have had to go back to his client, and they would have had to tear apart those stairs. Now, and I think a lot of that was due to frustration.
Yep.
A lot of, maybe he felt he was attacked, whatever the case may be. But I think some of it was also due to the fact that, and I know you guys are real busy down in planning, but somebody maybe need to take an extra step with them and I'm not saying for every variance that comes in. I mean, an ADU is an ADU, right? Mm-hmm. But a special exemption, an equitable waiver, take the extra 5-10 minutes with them to say, okay, just so you know, this is what you could be facing. And like I said, I know you guys are short-staffed. I know you guys are busy down there. And you got a lot doing. But to Lynn's point, we're starting to,
this is coming up time and time again.
Somebody had said this the first time. Hey, look, you're going to be building in wetlands. Just so you know, this is what you want to keep in mind.
Or you're close to the buffer. Remember, those steps can't do that. Remember, if you've got to raise it, you got to think it. Just be more proactive with advising these guys.
Sure, but also, in fairness, some people just kind of walk in at 4:30 and say, "Here's my application package."
Oh, absolutely.
So
I'm granted that. I'm just saying,
case.
Be more proactive with some of these things because specifically the steps. I think this is the third one that I remember, and I haven't been to all the meetings that I remember. People have said, "Oops, my steps are encroaching."
Well, the last one was a house.
Yeah.
So
you and I were
hello. Let's just remind these people, not that you necessarily have to review it, but remind the people that those are the kinds of things that we're going to be looking at, and they may not get a waiver. Mm-hmm. So they need to remember that and just not assume that, we'll just go get a waiver after the fact. You may not get it.
What's the saying? Here's something, ask for do anyway, and ask for forgiveness. That's all I kept going through my
Ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
Yeah, or something like that.
And that's necessarily not going to work.
I'm sorry, Lenny, go ahead.
To hitchhike with Lynn, if we're going to look at something, let's look at how some of these other communities address things like bulkheads and steps, where they're not counted. They're not part of the living space of the house. They're an appendage of. Now, when it comes to a wetland or wetland setbacks, that they bring a slightly different criteria into the puzzle. I'm not denying that, okay? But on a standard review on just a normal situation, not wetland, but a normal situation. I don't remember the verbiage from 25 years ago,
right?
Okay, but I know it's out there.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
And gravel versus concrete versus asphalt may also have an effect on this. But I'm just saying, emphasize to these people that are coming in that these things are not a given, and they need to pay attention to them. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of them are just kind of shrugging their shoulders and going ahead and coming in after the fact, and I don't like it.
Well, as long as they are considered, they're going to have to live with the rules.
That's right.
If we change the rules, that's a different ballgame.
Go ahead. Not even okie dokie. Two things. Number one, when he said that this it's past tense now, but it stuck in my mind when he says these things were leaning on two iron bars, and they're not really attached to the house. That's not true. The iron bars are attached to the house, and the steps are leaning on the things that are attached to the
He was
house.
grasping.
He's grasping. Number one, and number two is this. I agree with. Boy, this is for me. I agree with you. Thank you. I agree with Lenny.
There you go.
And it's partially, and I agree. No, seriously, I agree with Lenny, and I agree with Lynn here that this is the third time. The last time we did it, we gave them a break. Gave them a break. It was a house. We're going to push back. And what I'm saying to you is that when somebody hands you an application, if it's a normal application, then you don't even have to sit down with the applicant. But if it's a wetlands situation, I think that you should sit down and say, hey, listen, and if it's a buffer situation.
You're close.
You're close.
You're close.
You should,
Pay attention.
You should talk to them, and it won't take you that long just to say, hey, be careful. Are you looking at this plan? You know, these are all professional people.
The other thing, I hate the thing, because I know you guys are busy. If it's wetlands, something like that, kick it to conservation. Make them go to conservation. Make them get conservation to go, yeah, no, that's okay, before they come to us. People have done that before. I've already been to the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission has heard it, and they're okay. Okay, well, if Conservation has reviewed it, that kind of makes that's kind of doesn't mean we're going to approve it.
But it takes a little bit of the pressure off.
Because now we don't know what conservation thinks. And maybe conservation is the same question. I'm not saying for everything. Like I said, like an ADU, it's an ADU. You know, someone wants to put a pool in their backyard, and they're not, and it's just property line things. That's different. But a garage and that's property line, that's one thing. But when you're starting to get into the wetlands, maybe it's something that we discuss with staff to say, hey, maybe we get conservation involved because they're going to be within the buffer, or they're going to be near the buffer, or they're going to be next to the buffer.
My only concern with this whole train of thought is that, first of all, we're telling staff this is what you should be doing.
No, and I don't mean to do that, Robert. I'm sorry, Robert.
Well, what if nothing changes? Then what? We can't say staff spoke to you about it. Is there? I guess I'm wondering, is there a way to produce like a best practices? If you're building here, think about these things.
Yeah, and the other trouble is that in terms of, like, in this situation, we don't review the building plans or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, we, at the very least, all we saw was the variance for the other thing, and then that was the last we saw of it until they dropped the application off saying, oh, by the way, now we're here. So there was no opportunity for us to be involved anywhere between construction of the house to finished product.
So who goes out after we do a variance and they leave here? Is there anybody that goes out and kind of enforces or checks on these variances, or?
Like, really, building department, I imagine, if before CO would be issued, should be taking measurements, or that's what you get the plot plan for, the certified plot plan after that, to verify that all the measurements.
But plot plan is too late. I think when people are coming into the office, community development, pulling a permit or saying, this is what we're looking at, just a simple comment to say, remember, you've got some buffer issues. Remember, you've got some delineations. You need to pay attention to them, and don't just shrug your shoulders and say,
maybe
no problem.
And again, not telling you guys how to do your job. You guys, like I said, I think you guys do a great job. But maybe it's something that, and we've had special meetings with the zoning board sits down as a group. Not that I want to. Everybody's got busy schedules, but sit down with Tim and say, Tim, we need to work with the community at large, building department, planning board, conservation commission. We need to get everybody on board to say, when we have people that are going to be building near buffers, in wetlands, by wetlands, within the distance of buffers of wetlands, we need there should be a thing that the building department and community development can, okay, boom, this is what, and it's not just you, and it's not just Tim or Jillian, but it's, maybe we bring in planning, we bring in conservation, we bring in the building department, and it's, maybe it becomes something that goes into the laws, the zoning laws, the building laws.
I don't think it's even that. I think it's a matter of
best practice is the best
yep,
way. Rich
and I
put it.
think a lot of what I'm seeing lately is not the department, not the town, but the builders, the architects, the engineers, kind of shrugging their shoulders and saying, "Oh, we screwed up. All right, we'll go for a variance," and they'll give it to us. And I think we need to alert people ahead of time that you may screw up and you may not get a variance. So you need to pay attention to it when you're developing it, not after the fact.
And then part of that also falls on us then, as a board. Then we need to take a closer
And
look at things.
that may happen.
We may need to reel in the reins, maybe.
But I think Lenny's right. I think we ought to take a look at specifically, and this is probably part of planning board that may come in, we ought to take a look at what is the structure that defines these bounds, and does a bow window, does a set of stairs, does a cantilevered deck, whatever it is, what actually defines these bounds, and make it common with the rest of the community.
The other thing that I was going to point out or touch on that Rich mentioned earlier was the ZBA kind of getting into applications and discussing other options that may work on a lot. And I believe from trainings that I've done that that's really frowned upon from the legal sense for you guys, because you could kind of get yourself into trouble. You're really supposed to focus on only what's presented to you and leave any other redesigns on them. So that might be problematic.
Legally, we cannot provide advice, so we can't say you should go get a variance instead. So things like that are, I understand.
Yeah.
Right, and I wasn't trying to give him advice so much as just trying to educate him a little bit on what a variance is, because it didn't sound.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, he was definitely confused.
Well, in a roundabout way, about telling you what to do and what not to do. And you see, in a roundabout way, I disagree with that, because we are at the end of the chain. Okay? So when we sit here and an applicant comes up to us and when this situation comes about, it's us. But if the staff stops it before it even comes to us, then it'll be easier for us to understand what's going on. And we're giving you a suggestion on how to do this. If you don't take it, then we'll go to the next step. Now, this is just one member talking. I'm not talking for the rest of the crew. This is one. I'm suggesting to the staff, and we, as one person, to handle this. And if it's not handled the way I believe it's not going to be handled, then it's going to be another way. I may not be in the right way of doing it, but it's got to be done. So with this poor guy been sitting there for an hour and a half, and we're discussing this whole situation, and it doesn't work. My bottom line is, that's what we got you guys for. That's what I'm saying, Rob. You see where I'm coming from?
Yep.
Okay.
My question, though, going back to what I was saying, is can we have something drafted? And I don't know the logistics of this, but can we have like something drafted that is a kind of like a list of good to knows? Because I think, to Lenny's point, if our ordinances are one word off from Amherst or from Bedford or from any of our abutting towns, and these builders are building in all three towns, I totally get where a builder could have said, "Oh, no, we don't have to worry about that," forgetting that they're in Merrimack, not Amherst, and because this is a lot of stuff to remember.
Sure. If I understand it clearly, some towns, and I'm talking what Lenny was saying, the steps, the bulk is not included in the structure of building the house. But
Yeah.
but
He-
in
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little smoochie later.
No, I won't.
Yes, of course not. And I can't talk to my wife. My question is, let me lose the contract. The point is that in Merrimack, it does make a difference. The steps and the bulkhead is a structure in our ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The town I came from, Lenny, the way that Lenny described it, that's absolutely right. They did not consider them. They excluded them specifically.
And in Merrimack?
In Merrimack, they are counted. So they are considered part of the structure.
Okay.
So maybe the ZBA says, you know what, planning board, take a look at this and see, do you really want to consider bulkheads and stairs anymore?
And I think they're looking at some of those things now, so that may be something to add to the list.
Who's they?
Planning board.
But I'm saying that when this was around, I'm going to kick a horse here to death. But anyways, if this was done the way we did it in Merrimack, there must have been a reason for it. To say that the steps, the bulkhead, everything, it was attached to the house, is part of the structure. There must have been a reason for it. All right, what can we get?
Moving right along.
Can you come back to us at our next meeting?
Whoever's assigned to us, I don't know if it'll be me or Jillian coming next
Well,
time.
can you just pass the word along?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
And this discussion, I'm sure, will be captured by Zina, too.
I move to approve the minutes.
Mike,
Gotta keep it
Mike,
on.
I move we approve the minutes of Wednesday, March 30th as printed.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tony?
Of course. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll tell you the truth.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion adjourned.